Hi everyone, my name is Adam Paulson. I'm here at the University of Sydney in Australia. Together with Edward Foch Villaronga, we wrote the chapter Diversity and Inclusion in Artificial Intelligence for this book, and I'm excited to talk about it. So thank you all for accommodating this recording. I apologize I can't come in person or come in on Zoom, so thank you for your accommodation. As is custom in Australia, I would first like to acknowledge the traditional custodianship and law of the country which I'm speaking to you from today, and that is the land of the Gadigal people here in Sydney. I pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. I want to give another big thank you to Bart and Edward for putting this book together. It came out beautifully. I got my copy already. And thank you so much for that to them and the rest of the team around them. So there's a few topics I want to address today. The first is some definitions. So we'll get some definitions out there and clear for the remainder of the talk. Those definitions are about diversity, inclusion, sex, and gender. The next topic will be the different levels of the AI development process and how they have impacts on sex and gender considerations. Topic after that is the implications of missing diversity and inclusion of those sex and gender characteristics in the AI space. The last topic we'll talk about is some mitigation strategies going forward to make sure that diversity and inclusion are represented in AI. So the objective of our chapter and this talk is to show that by integrating diversity and inclusion considerations, AI systems can be made to be more inclusive of all society's needs. They can respect fundamental rights better and represent the contemporary, all the contemporary values in modern societies. So, to start off with the definitions. The first three definitions we'll go through are sex. So sex is that which is assigned at birth based on sex characteristics. Gender or gender identity is one's internal, deeply held sense of their own gender. And sexuality is one's physical, romantic, or emotional attraction to others. And the next two definitions we're looking at are diversity and inclusion. So diversity is the variety and representation of individuals in a particular instance, and inclusion is the representation of an individual user in an instance. So inclusion of the two is more experiential. So with these definitions in mind, in this chapter and in this talk, we're examining how sex and gender considerations are accounted for with diversity and inclusion measures across the AI space. And that occurs on what we're looking at is three different levels. The first level is the technical level, and so the technical level focuses on the diversity of algorithms and techniques and applications of AI. Some key questions on the technical level might be, are the algorithms taking into account all the necessary variables related to sex and gender considerations? Another question might be, are the algorithms classifying users in discriminatory ways? And so when we think about that, we might be thinking about sex and gender binaries or conflations of masculine traits with male gender or feminine traits with female gender. Again, these are the binaries that might be found on the technical level. And the second level is the community level, which centers on the diversity in the AI development community configuration and technique development stages. So it's more about the AI development community on this level. Some key questions here might be, does the team have enough female representation? Or are all the team members from the same background if we're then extending our considerations of diversity inclusion into cultural background, socioeconomic background, but for now we're just talking about sex and gender. As an example of not accounting for diversity of sex and gender in the community level, we took a screenshot of the Artificial Intelligence Journal to look at the editorial board. And this is in no way commenting only on the Artificial Intelligence Journal, it's more broadly on the scientific community, particularly the AI community. But of the editors of this journal, 13% were women and 87% are men, with no representation of the non-binary and gender diverse communities. And so this is just one example of not accounting for gender and sex inclusion and diversity on the community level. And the third level is the target user level. This level centers on the diversity of those interacting with and affected by AI systems. Some key questions on this level might be, was the project conducted by taking all the stakeholders into account, so including everyone who might be affected by the AI systems into account? And did research include the users for feedback? So not just accounting for them, but actually involving people in the process of realizing AI systems. So the next topic is the implications of missing diversity and inclusion in AI. And so here we'll be expanding upon some examples of what happens when we don't account for diversity and inclusion in the realization of AI systems. So the first exemplary implication is in the social robotics space, and that is the gendering of social robots. In this space, there's often a singular view of gender on the side of women, and that view is often very stereotypical, representing a sort of perfect womanhood. And so in the example on the right, we have a service robot operating out of India. It's actually in a care robot in a hospital. It's called Sono 2.5. And given the often gendering of social robots, it is designed in such a way as to represent stereotypical feminine qualities. Another example of an implication of failing to account for diversity in AI systems is gender binaries in algorithms, or particular gender binaries in gender classification systems. So what often happens is these systems will conflate masculine and feminine binaries with men and women. And so platforms like social media will take the input of users and assign them feminine or masculine qualities and try to assign a gender to that user. And so this perpetuates our stereotypes about sex and gender in society. Another example is found in AI-driven medicine. Often in medical AI systems, diverse sex and gender considerations are not accounted for, and this risks the safety and healthcare outcomes for people with diverse sex and gender characteristics, such as transgender persons or intersex persons. The last example of a consequence of forgetting diversity and inclusion measures in AI systems is in the sex robotics space. This particularly affects the end target user level, and so sex robots are often designed and targeted towards young, able-bodied and straight men, thus excluding everyone else of a diverse sex and gender identity. This space also perpetuates issues of misogyny, child sexual exploitation, male violence, and the idea that women are programmable. Okay, so our last topic is addressing diversity and inclusion in AI. And so here we're looking at 3 methods to account for diversity and inclusion in this space. So the first method is adding some diversity into AI algorithms. So 2 great examples of doing this are shown here. So the first is adding greater diversity and inclusion in data sets used in AI medicine and social media to account for diverse persons. And another example is increased use of gender-neutral biomarkers in AI decision making. So no longer assigning users inputs as feminine or masculine, but having gender-neutral markers. The second method of adding some diversity to AI is creating diverse teams, organizations, and design. Diverse groups have more accurate discussions, cite more facts, make fewer mistakes, and are more willing to broach sensitive topics. They often outperform homogeneous groups also. On the end user, level, participatory design is crucial to accounting for the diverse needs and values of vulnerable communities such as the sex and gender diverse communities. And the third exemplary method to increase diversity and inclusion in AI is through more inclusive guidelines, policies, and regulation. So this is highly relevant to our event today, and I'm imagining Edward can speak more to more in the room for us. So often AI developers lack some guidance on how to implement human rights in their teams and system designs, and this excludes many in the sex and gender diverse communities. Some relevant human rights here are articles of the Charter of Fundamental Rights on dignity, private life, and equality of all. Okay, to sum up the talk today and the objective of the chapter, there is more that needs to be done to account for sex and gender diversity and inclusion in the AI space. And this is on multiple levels related to AI development, AI team configuration, and the target user groups of AI. So there are certain strategies we presented that work towards that end. And those are reducing stereotypes and algorithms, creating diverse development teams, and improving developer guidelines. If anyone has any questions, Edward's in the room to address any of those, or you can reach out to me at the University of Sydney. My contact details are provided here. Thank you so much. Hopefully I'll be at the next one.